Meeting to order at 9:01. Thank you, Ms. Taylor, for saying our invocation.
Let's bow our heads. Heavenly Father, we want to thank you for the opportunity to be here today to do the work of the Cherokee people. We pray that you will be with us in this meeting, Lord, and let everything we do be a blessing to you. We pray for our service members, both here and abroad. Put your hedge of protection around them as they fight for our freedom. For it's in your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Shall we?
Yes, ma'am. Victoria Vespas?
Connie?
Joe Bird?
Honey.
Neil England?
Honey.
Keith Austin?
Here.
Tyler Lester?
Here.
Sean Crittenden? Mike Dobbins? Kaden Duncan?
Honey.
Wanda Hatfield?
Connie.
Rex George?
Here.
Dick Lay? Mike Shambaugh?
Here.
Mary Bakershaw? E.O. Smith?
Here.
Denise Taylor?
Here.
Brian Warner?
Honey.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Yes. Call for approval of the minutes, if everyone's had a chance to read them from last time.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passed, thank you. All right, our first report will be from Cultural Tourism. Good morning, Molly. Good morning. Always good to have you.
Morning. So a few updates from the report that was submitted. On the Capitol building, we are still working on the opening date for that. We are looking at a date the first week of August, but just trying to confirm that per the note here, we have a piece of glass, the case glass that was broken, and we have to get that repaired before we can allow visitors into the museum because it covers some items from the Smithsonian. So we are just awaiting arrival of that glass until we confirm the schedule for the actual opening. But we're hoping for the first week of August. Continuing to work on the cultural pathway in downtown here. And then on Celine, the caretaker's home is pretty much complete. We're just working on some punch list items. The completion of the courthouse building is looking around the September timeframe, and we have everything we need to complete that now with the approval from the fire marshal and waiting receipt for new windows for the property, but that should lead us to that completion date in September. On the retail, there are a couple notes there about merchandise, and then one new thing that I wanted to mention that is not in the report is we are updating the point of sale system, the register, if you will, with an entirely new system that's company-wide for C&E. So we will have the same system that the casinos have, which will allow us to take gift cards and will allow people who have player reward points to use those in all of our gift shops. This will also update our website and allow our inventory on the website to be consistent with the store inventory, which today it's not. We have a manual process for that. So we are excited to go through that implementation. And then on the exhibits, a couple notes that are not there. The teams are continually working to update and have new exhibits in all of the properties. For one note, this is the celebration of, it is 40 years since Cherokee Nation regained ownership of those of those buildings from the state. And 40 years past, all of these buildings are now museums. So we have the Capitol, Supreme Court, prison. So those are all in our possession and have all been transitioned to museums and preserved. So the two exhibits that are not listed in your report are the End of the Trail exhibit at John Ross Museum and the Ownership Regained, which I just spoke about, exhibit, which is at the prison. And those are all my notes. Are there any questions?
Any questions, anyone? Yes, Ms. Shaw.
I'm sorry, I was about 3 minutes late coming in. Did you say anything about the national treasures?
No, did you have a question?
Yes, how many new ones are there this year?
I believe 3 have been selected.
And can you tell me what fields those are in?
Not right off the top of my head, but we could get that. We haven't made the announcement for that always comes out with the awards ceremony. So we try to kind of keep it under wraps
Oh,
until
okay.
until then.
Like the Oscars, you don't want
The Emmys are being announced today. Right.
yes.
Matter of fact, being here, we're missing that announcement. Anyway.
But the persons selected have been notified, but they've been asked to kind of not share the information until that announcement comes out.
Can you share with us how many were nominated for National Treasures?
I'll have to look back at my notes. There were several. I don't want to give you a firm number. I'm around a dozen, I would say, as an estimate, but I can look back and give you the exact number of nominees.
Okay, and were the winners chosen by National Treasures?
The committee.
The committee?
The
Okay.
committee is made up of national treasures.
Oh, good.
Yes.
Okay, thanks, Molly.
Yeah.
Counselor Crittenden?
Molly, I had some elders ask me about, seemed like we talked about a bus tour to North Carolina at some point. Put some information on that.
Yeah, we do that every other year. So we're actually preparing for the 2020 tour, and we will start pre-sale or early bird special for that in October.
What's that normally cost?
Around
What's the-
$1,000.
It's 1,500.
1,500.
For single, and then double is around
1,300.
1,500 a person.
And that's for a full week. It's usually 7 days, and that includes hotels, all hotel stays, admissions to the places that we visit, and does it include any meals? Most of the meals. But we will have all of the information for that, probably in mid-September for early bird sales in October. And then will it be June 2020?
2020.
Yeah, June 2020 will be the tour.
It is the fall festival.
But then that's not June, right?
No, it's
October.
October 2020?
the fall festival.
Yeah, so we'll do, we kind of alternate between doing fall festival and then the drama in the summer. So in 2018, we visited the drama, so 2020 will be fall festival.
How many normally go? Do you have a bus load or two?
We sell out, we charter one bus and we sell that out, so it's about 50 people.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Molly, sometimes I'd like to invite one of your staff people to attend the Marshall Museum meeting we have there in Fort Smith. There's a component they're doing on the Cherokee history. And I just want to make sure when you guys have a chance to look at it before the museum is complete and make sure that it's authentic and accurate and what they're trying to present. I mean, it's a good thing, but there's probably some details that somebody from your department could take a,
We'd be happy to.
appreciate it. I'll keep you informed.
Okay. Good report, Molly. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Mr. Roy Boney, Cherokee Nation Language Program. Thanks for being here, Roy.
You on the guide?
Yeah. Good.
Quite a few things to note here in addition to the report. First off, I'll start with the Tri-Council meeting. Howard Payton and I attended that event with two purposes. One was to go out and meet with the Eastern Band to sign up as many speakers as we could for the roll book project for the speakers. And in the following week, Howard and his crew went back out there again. So we've hit the Eastern Band pretty good so far, but we still need to get more of their signatures. And at Tri-Council, we were happy to see that the state of emergency was passed for language. As we all know, our language is endangered, and so this is going to go a long way to help us get better resources for what we need to do. And with that, a request was made to have a committee representing each of the three tribes formed for that, and so we have our consortium meeting. It happens, so they're going to handle that. They're going to name some people to be the reps for this particular project. Their next meeting is tentatively scheduled during Cherokee holiday, so the Eastern Band will be coming out here for that. The next item is we had our Ignite Teacher Training Conference on June 17th to the 21st here in Tahlequah. We brought in 11 language instructors from across the country. They came and taught teacher training for language for our staff and the staffs of several other tribes too, as well as just regular teachers that are teaching other languages like Spanish and French. So the event's becoming a much larger event now. We had people from across the country attend this. So we had about an average of 90 people attending each day. So it's growing. We hope next year to do it again and possibly have it at the new facility at the casino. And speaking of that, we had several staff represented at the CCO conference this weekend. I did a couple presentations, and some of my staff did several as well. We had good meetings with the at-large representation as well. They have a lot of good ideas for how they can engage in language. Most of it revolves online, since obviously the geography there kind of keeps us from meeting all the time. But we got a lot of good ideas, and I think we're going to make a really much more strong effort to reach the at-large tribe representatives too out there. And starting tomorrow in Ada, the Intertribal Council Language Work Group, we are hosting a language workshop for our tribal programs, for our tribal language programs. That'll be Wednesday and Thursday. And Wade Blevins, who works in our staff, will be heading that up along with Peggy Gertie. So we'll have some Cherokees training the rest of all the five tribes on how to teach language. Also, I'd like to give a shout out to David Crawler, who's one of our translators. He's going to be featured in OCO TV coming up. They did an interview with him, and it's about his shell shackle making. And he did most of his interview in Cherokee, so we're going to have to get that translated. But that's the only way he agreed to do it. So.
That would be David.
Yeah, and that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Yes, Ms. Shaw?
Hi. I thought you were fantastic at the CCO conference, and I was really proud of you representing us at Tri-Council as well. What I wanted to ask you is, do we pay our speakers when they go share the language lessons? Are we paying for their gas, or do they receive a salary when they go to these different locations for Cherokee classes?
Yeah, we have contracts for our teachers, so when they go to a community, we have them on contract and we can pay them.
And we pay them. Do we pay them for their gas and their expense as well?
No, we give them lump sum contract payment at the end of the course, and that covers some of that.
And that covers some of that?
Yeah.
I guess my question is, should the communities reimburse them for gas money?
I don't know if the community should, but I would. I don't know if it's appropriate. I'd like to see the amount increase that we pay them. We're budgeted every year for $1,200 a class, and that's been set at that rate for many years now. So it would be great if we could increase the payment for that.
I guess the reason I'm asking is that I have been asked for funds in the past to help pay for gas for the speaker to do language classes, and that's why I was asking.
Okay, yeah. If there's a speaker that. There are some classes that we aren't doing, the community's kind of taking it upon themselves to do, and in that situation, if they can get in touch with me, maybe we can work something out. But for the formal classes we're doing, we do have that contract on file with our instructors.
So it's possible that they've done this on their own?
Yeah.
Thank you. That answers it. Appreciate
Okay.
it.
On your master apprenticeship program, how many students do you select there per year?
I'm not positive because that falls under Howard and the community services. I think Kevin might be able to answer that exact number.
When you get with those guys pertaining to the language, see how we would address increasing that amount, because we talked about that before. That's what, a year, is it 1 year or 2 year program?
It's a 2-year program.
See, 2-year program on the average person, let's say because the people that come up to me and that are interested in that program are adults, usually maybe even college graduate that are very interested in that program. But to take 2 years off of their life, which a lot of them would want to do that, if the stipend was large enough.
Uh-huh.
And if we're really going to take this serious, then we should make it worth their while where they can pay their bills. I remember in graduate school, there was a Dr. Fountain Holland that recruited us, and he probably put 1,000 people through school. Dr. Gord, you might even went through some of that program, but they gave us a stipend, and they took care of our books and fees. And without that stipend, I would never got through graduate program. And I guess my point is, let's look at some scenarios on how we can increase that amount Or if you're a college graduate, or some of our employees here might want to take that master apprenticeship program, but with the amount that we give them, which is a good start, don't get me wrong, but to really take care of a person's welfare, I'm not sure it's enough. Just something to look at, and give me maybe option A, B, and C. Appreciate it. Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair.
Sure. Counselor Crittenden?
Yeah, on the same lines as speaker, have there been any conversations about any type of incentives for the young folks to learn the language? We're talking about the state of emergency, talked about it. I wasn't there, but in North Carolina. Any type of conversations about incentives for our young folk?
No, not particularly,
I mean-
honestly.
I mean, that's been on my mind. I remember when I ran in 2015, when they asked about the language, that's been on my mind. You know, just incentives. You know, maybe, you know, I've seen these classes and I love them around the communities, but it's, to some of these kids, it's more like a hobby. I think I'll try this for a week or two, and they might learn the animals or how to count to 10. But I've always thought that if we give them something, maybe, hey, you pass this test when you graduate high school, and you've got so much of the language or all of the language, here's so much more scholarship money. And because, you know, I like to think I'm a pretty good guy, but incentives, when I worked at all the factories I've worked at, and, you know, the schools, you know, I love kids, but by golly, I want that paycheck too. But why do we limit? Why can't we start talking about that?
Yeah, that'd be great. I was asked to speak to the Tribal Youth Council, the new group, and I asked them that question in terms of what gets you interested in learning Cherokee, and they all, obviously with this group, they're all interested in it, but they said a lot of their peers don't see it as important. They don't have any use for it in their day-to-day life. So again, if we had an incentive program of some kind, maybe some people would come in and start learning more of it.
And I'd love to, if you and your professional group, I mean, you guys are the experts, but if you guys come up with something, I would love to lay that legislation out, or act, or whatever you want to call it, that, or a budget mod to help fund that, and just see. And because now the Master Apprentice was the number 4 a year, or am I way off? But please have those, and I'm sure there's others that would be interested in something like that.
Okay, yeah, I'll start working on some ideas.
Thank you. Thank you.
Counselor Hatfield was first, Mary.
Roy, thank you for everything you do for our language, and thank you for all the books that you send me, and or give to me, or whoever's giving it to me. But and I like the online, because that's, you know, that technology, that's what it's all about. But the books are still, I've received some very positive comments from the books I've mailed out. And one parent actually in Florida, she's teaching, she's a homeschooler. She has 3 or 4 children, so they each get a book. So thanks for the extra books. I said I would send them that, but thank you for everything you do. It's been fantastic working with you. Thank you very much. Thank you for your program. Thank you.
Counselor Shaw?
Roy, what we need to get the kids engaged, I think, is an inexpensive electronic game. You know, and where they get to different levels, and where, you know, an animal and it's the Cherokee word, and they have to repeat the word or something I mean, because kids are into games. I'm just thinking, and then they get to, you know what, the Gadoogie level or something. I mean, you know, where they each step and they're learning a new Cherokee word. I think something like that, I don't know how we could develop that, but I think it'd be awesome if CNB or would partner with Microsoft or something for a,
Getting up their iPads.
Yeah, well, I had a meeting with Todd Gord, who's the new director of IT at CNBN here, and I talked about this idea too of if we could hire or have some staff detailed over as programmers for language, I know Brian Shade, the previous IT director, had tried to make that happen, but for whatever reason, it kind of got off sidetrack. But if we did have staff that was their main task, was creating these apps and games. So we got the materials to do this. We just need that programming knowledge to make that happen.
You know, is there something council could do to help with that? Is there someone we could talk to help expedite something like that? You know, I have 3 granddaughters, and I'm gonna tell you something, you give them an electronic game, they're gonna wanna master the game, and if they can learn doing it, I think it'd be an awesome opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, and for me, the best case scenario, this is always been a dream of mine, because that's where a lot of my interests lie too, is in this technology. But if we could have like maybe 2 full-time staff members, that's all they do. It'd be basically new job positions for this particular.
Teach them how to play a game.
He's got a pretty good brain.
That would be awesome. Well, I appreciate you. Thank you so much.
That's a good comment there. That's a good idea.
It's expensive.
Anyone else have any questions?
Just real quick. So you got all the stuff you need except a programmer.
Yeah, we need a dedicated program. We've tried it with a couple of the IT guys, but they get pulled over the health. You know, they're busy too. So if we had,
There's programmers that do contract work, right?
Mhm.
And if we really believe in that, put some money out there and hire that programmer and for a year contract or something and see how it goes. But you got everything you need except a program.
yeah,
Wow.
we have the content, and we got the speakers and the
Wow.
recordings and all that. We just need
That's
someone to program it together.
Wow, thank you.
You know, one more comment. At Intertribal, the young person I was sitting by, Counselor Taylor there, for, I think it was Creek, it could be in Chickasaw, that gave the prayer at Intertribal, and he was probably no more than 30 years old. And what I saw, there was that big gap on that generation that could give the prayer. Then if you went up 35 to 50, none of them could give the prayer. But he had learned the prayer. And he was like 30 years old and got up and said the beginning prayer, then he closed the prayer. Usually in our way, we would get an elder to do it. But I could see, and I talked to him later about, he said, I learned that prayer. I learned that prayer. So the other generation, there's that big gap. And we also have that gap here. And like the Counselor Crittenden said, that younger group in the elementary ages where we've got to entrench those ones that have that passion to learn. And that passion to learn is with the games that we're talking about. And surely we've got some people we can put out there, and if we need to contract with somebody in that area, come back with a plan.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair.
Sure. Thank you. Anyone else? Thank you, Roy.
All right.
All right, next up, Mr. Kevin Stretch with CTO.
You guys want to aid?
I would like to add a few things to that. Part of the problem with the number of warm bodies in the Master Apprentice program is that to find people that are passionate about the language and also qualified, and by qualified that even means something as simple as living around here or willing to move here, is difficult. There are people all over the country that want to learn it and would love to be in the program, but it is a one-on-one classroom type environment, and it's not something that we currently do online or offer online, because it is sitting around and going to the store in the language and cooking in the language and cleaning up the area in the language, and that's difficult to do online. And so that's why we have so few people in there, because we would love to have 20 or 50 people in there at all times, but we also only have 3 speakers teaching, and there are currently no opportunities, or very few opportunities, for graduates to teach Cherokee after they graduate. So that's one thing that the council can help us with, is come up with jobs that will show your appreciation for them learning Cherokee and teaching Cherokee by figuring out programs where we can put a Cherokee speaker in. So that's a difficult task as well. And as far as Roy talks about the app, and Roy could talk to you about the folks at Bloom that are helping on the Cherokee language app as well. But yeah, getting a programmer just to program any type of app is different than getting a person that is a speaker or knowledgeable in the language and culture to make that app at the same time. So, you know, that's kind of a funnel effect where you have all these programmers, but only a few of them know Cherokee and do Cherokee and are passionate about it. So that makes it difficult. Anyway, that's my 2 cents on that.
Are you just going with the report, or do you have anything to add to your report?
I don't have anything to add to the report.
That's fine. All right, let's go ahead, Council Crittenden.
Yeah, and how many people applied for the Master Apprentice?
I think last year we had about 30.
About 30. And
How
that,
many were selected?
4, I believe.
What's your capacity, if I may ask?
We've had up to 8 at one time.
Okay.
And that's, and over the 2-year program, 4 of those dropped out. Because it's difficult.
What's the
what
salary?
would you say the ratio, like the teacher, how many people can she teach or he teach?
I'm not an expert in that field, but
So how many do we have right now?
we have 3 speakers.
3 that take care of 4 people.
Well, there are 4 people in each cohort, so there are really 8 people total in that. Because we have 4 that are also in the second year and 4 in the first year, so that we can keep rotating them.
What's the qualifications to teach? Because there's lots of speakers we're finding out in our rural areas that would
Right.
love a position and would do a good job. So what's the qualification?
Other than being a speaker, being patient, being someone that has a teacher attitude and aptitude for teaching. And that's not everyone can do that. Just like people that are great football players are not good coaches. So,
Now, Canaan's been to all of the speakers where we were awarding them, and I hadn't made one yet. But, I mean, we could help them find somebody that could teach, right? I mean, if that's one of the holdups is, and, I mean, what better job for us to do if we're declaring an emergency to lay money out there for more? I mean, not just me and Canaan, I'm sure all of us could, here's you some teachers. And, you know, and the programmer, if we get serious about that, there's another good job. You assign one of those Cherokee speakers to that programmer, whatever game you're doing. You know, I want this thing to say this, and there's our Cherokee speaker with a job assigned to that programmer. So when that's what these committee meetings are for.
yeah.
Is,
We're also in our 3rd year, and, so we're ramping up. What took the first cohort a year to learn, took the second group 6 months to learn, and it took the third group 3 months to learn. And so we're trying to keep ahead of that learning curve. And so we have folks building curriculum and designing instruction for the future so that we could also be able to house.
well, I'm rooting for you like everybody else here. It's not anybody's fault, but 4 is not a very big number a year.
It's not.
And if we're needing teachers, you need to come to us and say, we need so many teachers. And this is the right group to come to. You know, we can talk about it every month, same stuff. But we can get you some Cherokee speakers. And, you know, I was talking to even my dad the other day. You mean they pay somebody to go up there and take class to learn a language? I mean, we can get you the students you need. Sounds like 30 or 40 applied, and we chose 4. So finding the people willing don't sound too hard. We can help you find the money and the teachers. So maybe next month, if speaker don't mind, just come up with something that you guys need to expand that for 4 people a year.
And you know, those students that are selected, I'll say students, though they have to be committed, because I've gone to some of your community meetings. These are after hours. I've seen them cleaning and cooking at 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock on a Friday night and picking up where everybody else has gone to a movie and at the
Exactly.
mall.
You have to have a
It's
Cherokee heart too,
dedication.
don't you?
Yeah, it's dedication. So it's not your average person that wants to commit to this. It is. It's a commitment, and you have to have passion for it.
Absolutely. And, you know, we've talked about having, ideally, we would have teacher master apprentice programs in every community. You know, and some of these folks that are graduating now, we've talked about having one in different areas that could teach a group of people, you know, on an ongoing basis, so that they didn't have to come to Telequal all the time. Perhaps you could have one in your own community, which I think would be a great thing.
Counselor Shaw, did you have a question?
Yes, Kevin, you said a while ago that you would think that we'd have to have a program here. With online classes that are archived and with technology, do you really feel that it would be imperative that they come here? Because I think our chances of getting something of highest quality might not be having them have to relocate here.
Well, part of it is, you know, they talk about research indicating that it takes 4,000 hours of contact to begin learning a language. And so this 2 years represents that 4,000 hours, but it's one-on-one. And even though we have a group of students around, if you're struggling, then we have someone working with you. Whereas I don't know of technology that will pick that out. And if you're struggling with this particular branch of the language, that it could reprogram itself to help you with your issues. Whereas someone live can't. And the second year students are tasked with helping the first year students as well. And so they're learning to be teachers as well as learning more advanced language skills. So I would love for there to be technology out there for that.
Oh, I would too, very much.
Counselor Warner?
Yes, ma'am, thank you. Well, since we're throwing around ideas and I like ideas and everything, I think it would probably do us all some good, those that can spend some time to go over there, because I've been invited in with that group to spend a week or 2 every day that they're there with them, so that we can see the inner workings of what's going on and see what their struggles are, to get a view from the inside. I mean, it's kind of like when I trained racehorses, I could tell somebody everything, but there's certain instances that come up every day that is a special need or something like that. And I think that would help the council get a better idea to spend that week, 2 weeks, maybe a month of their time with those individuals in that program. And it doesn't have to be all of us at one time. You know, a group, say if I went a week and me moving on to my next duty with the Cherokee Nation, I plan on going over there and spending some time so that I can get in there and see, because I see when Howard and Ryan and you and Kevin come up to the front, there's other things that it's hard to explain if you're not there. So that would be one idea that I think would help us get a better grasp of what is really needed, and then come back to the table and see how we can do that. So, thank you.
Good idea, thank you. Yes, Counselor Hatfield.
And furthermore, with the language, okay, language is different in every community, because when there is a learned language, sometimes as a speaker, I have difficulty, understanding them, but it's probably like the proper English proper Cherokee. And so that's what you're, I have a feeling that you're probably, and with the master, you're teaching the proper English. My daughter had 3 years of Cherokee at OU, and she was taught by Bobby Blossom, but she would, she would speak to me, and I was like, there were some words that, she would say, you're not speaking properly, Mom. Because, sometimes there are communities, just like Joe Burr, his community, Cherokee, where I grew up, it's kind of a short, we shorten the words. And then sometimes I'll say that. It doesn't mean it's improper. It's just that that's the way I was brought up by my grandparents. And that's what, but nonetheless, if you're teaching the language, that's the most important thing, And while here too, I know you don't have anything to do with the immersion program, but recently there was I know the language is working. There was a 3-year-old, he's almost 4, and there was some Cherokee being spoken in his presence. And he says, I know what you're saying. And he probably just learned English. He's just been able to speak. So that's exciting, because we're getting the babies.
Right.
And Verna said yesterday, it's 6 months, and you're speaking, that's when you have to begin.
I agree.
Thank you.
And the ways to talk about something that, or expand on what Speaker Byrd said, the elders talk and then the young kids talk, but it's that middle generation that the elders got chastised for growing up. And so they didn't pass that to the kids because they didn't want them to have to go through what they went through. And so we hope, our hope is that this CLMAP program will teach that age group, because the kids learn at immersion, but they can't go home to a speaker, but they can talk to their grandparents.
Yes.
So if we can get that, that parental unit to start talking Cherokee, then I think we can make that connection with all the generations. That's what our goal is.
But I think, the more we talk about it, it's just language, right? And, but I think, of course there could be improvements, but at the same time, I think to the best of our ability, we're doing the very best, but we can always act, just like Sean and Mary brought programs, that's the future. But, it's very complex too to build those programs. And, I don't think if you presented a program, it said this is what we'd like to do, or council, that would assist you. But it's not a simple thing, but it's a great idea, for the young kids. But I still like that that language. Like I said, the little 3-year-old barely speak English. He just learned to speak English, but he's getting the Cherokee. I'm excited. Thank you, Kevin.
That's great.
Thank you, Deputy.
Thank you.
One more short comment. As we have our community meetings, we have speakers out there in the rural areas. God, we all have them. And they're probably not being utilized. And we could recruit them and say, would you be willing to come to the classroom once a week? Make it worth their while, mileage or whatever. Wouldn't take a whole lot, get them out of the house and make them feel worthwhile. That would go a long ways. Just to maybe go to the immersion class. Even our language translators. There's probably nobody in there other than Anna, over 65 years old. And there's another age group up there, now that they're 75-year-old. Their vocabulary is higher than those guys in there. I've been around both of them. And sometimes they make decisions there without consulting those elders in Adair County and Mays County, Delaware, and Sequoia County. Because I've talked to both of them. Like Woody Harris up there in Kenwood, he's probably 80-something years old, and I've got a guy back home, he's 90, Levi Eagle, and those guys like to really critique. But I don't want them to criticize anybody, because anybody that's attempting to speak the language, I encourage. I used to not be that way. I used to be real critical, because I was an English teacher back in my time there. And I was critical of how they said the appropriate Cherokee word, if there is one. But I think we could recruit those elders out there and put this together. But I think we need to have a few more roundtable discussions like we're having here and see what kind of ideas we can come up with. But, you know, that emergency thing that we're calling our language, we can solve some of those problems with, and you got support here. You just heard it. So come up with a plan, and we'll try to come up with some plans. And let's resolve some of these things here. Because it's a process. It's a process. How do we gap those from the little immersion to our elders there? And I'm just excited you guys are doing it. We appreciate you and your staff and what you do. I mean, because it's only 3 years old. And what Roy and them are doing, I'm excited about that as well.
Yeah,
We appreciate you.
Roy worked with Howard and Ryan really well and really closely, and I think we're getting a good mesh there.
If that guy from North Carolina that's not even tribal, he can read it and write it and sing it. So there you go. There's possibility out there. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Kevin.
No.
All right, we've made time for Dr. Gord. Come on up.
Lord's all right.
Historical Society. We're always glad to hear from you.
Morning, everybody.
Good morning.
I was running on Heritage Center time this morning, running a little bit late. I managed to send a report out. I wanted to highlight a couple of things. As you all are very well aware, we're moving toward Cherokee holiday, and we have the deadline this Friday is for the homecoming art show and sale. I wanted to make sure everybody is aware and can get the word out. We're having another press release and putting on Facebook that the deadline for submission is this Friday, and then that show will go up. And the fall exhibit, I want to kind of advertise just a little bit more. It's Rob Daugherty's collection of baseball, American Indians in professional baseball, the first 50 years. From 1897 to 1947, which was 50 years before Jackie Robinson, you know, and his claim to have broken the color barrier. But there is a significant number of citizens of the 5 civilized tribes who played professional baseball. We have been in contact with the Baseball Hall of Fame, and they are a willing partner in this. And I think it's going to be and can be something very significant. Tanya Weevil, who is our Director of Education, is also a baseball fanatic. She took her vacation last summer and went to the Baseball Hall of Fame. And so she's going to be working very closely with Rob to, she's going to make some uniforms from that time. As you all know, she's a national treasure in clothing. So she's getting all wrapped up. I said, well, you want to play catcher or second base? But, you know, I think that's going to be a very significant, and we want to also highlight as a part of that those who are citizens of American Indian tribes that are currently playing professional baseball. And I've even thought about, and I don't know exactly how to, except just to send out a broadcast somehow, all American Indian college students who are playing Division I NCAA baseball. I know about 15 or 20 of them right now. So at least, you know, some form of recognition. If y'all have any ideas of how you would like to see this, things that you would like to have included, because in our exhibit with it, we're going, you know, as you go through, the last thing we're going to highlight is all of the Cherokee professional baseball players, and we have a number right now that are playing. So we're working on that, and it will be our major exhibit for next year from September through March. Our outreach program is, which you all put extra money into, which made us eligible for additional funding. is already booked with the exception of 2 or 3 weeks for next year. So Shanice Cloud does a phenomenal job working with the students, with the schools, and identifying local artists to work with the kids in their particular communities. We're hosting in September the Five Tribes Genealogy Conference. Gene Norris, we had that first one last year. The Chickasaw Nation hosted it down at Sulphur, and we will be the host this year at the new facility here. We will be the very first from the U.S. Census Bureau, a whole new database. We release the information every 75 years or however many years it is, but this will be the first public presentation and announcement of the database that's available. So I think that's quite an accomplishment and recognition of the work that Gene has done there. Our gala, which is our annual funding event, will also be held here this year, and it's November the 2nd, so we are in the process of putting together the final planning for that. I want to make also, in conclusion, a very special thank you and recognition for Barbara Gertie of our staff. She has worked incredibly well this summer. One of our major deficiencies, as you are well aware, is a number of people at the Heritage Center when tourists and others come there to the village, to the columns, to the museum, to Adams Corner. We have 51 total people added this year through the VISTA program. The American Indian Resource Center was the primary intermediary. We petitioned them. They assigned us a number of people. The Summer Youth Employment Program, which unfortunately ends this Friday, but we have had, according, by the way of coordinating and making sure all of this happens, was with Barbara Gertie, and she puts in a tremendous number of hours there at the Heritage Center. And we have just about 40,000 Facebook followers that go along and keep up with what we're doing. So if you have any questions, I'll let it go with that.
Anyone have any questions for Dr. Gord? Yes.
I really don't have a question, but I just have a comment. I think at some point, we really do need to sit down with you and discuss at length the plans for the shell or whatever it is that's supposedly to be built to
Archives?
Archives.
Yes, ma'am.
At some point in time. I don't know if this is the best time, is it?
I'm ready when you are.
Okay.
We could start that conversation. It would be wonderful.
Can you tell us where we stand on building this storage facility for all our archives?
The main idea for it, as you all are well aware, the current collection is in the basement of a 50-year-old building with the water pipes running overhead. That causes me concern every day. Chief Baker put together a fund of money. We got with an architectural firm here in town. It was put out for bid. The difference is when you're going to do an archive facility with the proper types of preservation equipment inside, it's going to cost more for the stuff inside to preserve our items and things that have not only have been donated but will. So the problem right now is the size of the building. We have an option. And I think that we're probably going to, in order to preserve the things we have, is go to a reduced size building so that we have the proper equipment there to preserve the things that we have. So at present, I talked 2 weeks ago, I think it was, with the guy on how to properly install the tracks for moving storage, shelving, and all of that kind of stuff. So we're kind of wrapping up the finals as to the size of the building and what types of preservation environments we'll be able to have in there based on what we have as an inventory and things. I got another message this morning from another person who's made a significant contribution of documents that within the next month there will be more. So, yeah, we need to, in the long run, this is going to be a long-term commitment and an expensive endeavor because we're going to need a number of buildings. Because the documents that are in the warehouse right now of the governmental documents by the legislation that's currently in place, we're to be the repository of those. So we need to talk about not only the building we're thinking about at present and trying to get that one finalized, but also what are we going to do and how are we going to preserve and where are we going to put all of this stuff that we know is coming.
Tell me about the location of where this is going to be.
According to the, I just went blank, Catherine Gray and Elizabeth Toombs had to do the proper environmental work on the location for it. It needs to be, since it's an investment of funds from the National Treasury, it needs to be on land owned by the Cherokee Nation. So at present, given the proximity to the 44 acres we have, it's there just to the west between the village and Park Hill Road highway that's right there. And that's where the current location, and we have had the environmental work done on that.
Is that the best location, just out of curiosity? I mean, considering it's Cherokee land. I guess my question is this, because I've often thought that the center should be owned and operated fully by Cherokee Nation. I've often thought that, and remove the state of Oklahoma, so that we would have more control, absolute control over what's happening with our artifacts and with our staffing, et cetera, et cetera. Can you share your opinion on that with me? The pros and cons?
Two things. Number one, I found out within the last year, and I was unaware of this, the public perception is that the Cherokee Nation owns, manages, and operates. That's the public perception. The deed to the property was from and I think it was in 2007, was from the State Historical Society to the Cherokee National Historical Society, and there's a reversionary clause in that deed which says that if the Heritage Center essentially ceases to exist or can't function anymore, then it will all revert to the state. I visited with the Realty office here, and one of the suggestions that has been made, which I think would be very appropriate because we need to be tribally affiliated, was that what the Realty office suggested, Chief Baker and a number of people on the council with whom I've had an opportunity to visit, is that the Heritage Center deeded over to the nation. The nation then could get the reversionary clause removed and have that property placed federal, restricted, and trust. That would preserve the function, the role, the duty, and purpose, but the main thing is it would open up a number of additional federal funding opportunities for us to truly make that a world-class facility.
Wow, I was unaware of that.
That this has been within the last, I would say, 4 or 5 months that option was opened up. And the lady at the Realty office was incredibly helpful in explaining to me. Well, we got Susan Plum's husband worked with the BIA Realty office. He did the appraisal. The State Historical Society Board was ready to send Dr. Blackburn over here just to remove the reversionary and clear the deed. There was a person on the State Historical Society that was a former employee of the State Attorney General's office, and he said, essentially, you owe us the value of that reversionary clause. So then it became a matter of how do you appraise the value of that. So Susan's husband came up with, and based on the formula of stuff of how it would be from 2007 to the present, it was $190,000 is what the Heritage Center would have to come up with in cash to give to the Historical Society for them to clear it. So the best, to me, the option that was presented was that deed it to the nation, have it immediately placed federal restricted in trust that would remove the reversionary, make it tribally affiliated.
Question, how much, may I ask how much the annual operating budget is? For the, I mean, we're getting ready to come up on budget hearings. Can you give us an idea of what it costs to under the present standards that you're operating under?
Cheryl just happened to show up. She's the one who handles all of our finances and
Currently, we're operating at about 1.4 million annually.
You know, would it take, I mean, what would it take to, as a motion, to make this go under Cherokee Nation, to pursue all efforts to try to obtain our Heritage Center for Cherokee Nation?
Are we in the process? I don't want to.
it has been on the agenda, and it's a point of discussion for the board. To your issue here, what you're suggesting, either it wouldn't have to be a formal resolution, but a request from the council that we need to renegotiate the memorandum of agreement. The one that's in place now is more than 10 years old. We need to bring a number of things up to the present. And if there was an opportunity that the council would take a position that you stand ready to negotiate with, and let's get all of these issues resolved so we can make that a world-class facility, I think it would put the board in a better position, the nation, and especially afford us, and what I keep trying to find is the best and proper way to identify the funding sources and make sure that we're eligible for the types of, we need parking lots, we need restrooms, our group tours is expanding tremendously, we need classroom space, the whole 9 yards. So it's just all of this kind of it's like a rubber band. You pull one thing, it puts a stretch in another.
Dr. Gordon?
Yes.
What would you need from us? You've got support. Mm-hmm. Without a resolution, what resources from the Cherokee Nation do you need? You need our legal, you need our realty department, you need the executive branch. What do you need from us for step one to move forward with this? Because when you're talking about $190,000, and that's okay. I mean, we owe them something. But $190,000 for us to make that place that's got the word Cherokee on there, a show place.
Right.
We've been going over this for years. We just need to do it, because years to come, when the holidays coming up, we don't ever have enough space out there. The heating and air, no matter how much money we put into it, it just needs to be redone.
Right.
So what do you need from us?
What I think would really be helpful, we have a board meeting scheduled for July 31st. Is it the 31st we picked? Yes. And if someone could be designated from the council to attend a board meeting so that we can put this on the agenda and then I would hope that I'll also extend the opportunity or the option for someone from the administration also to attend, so that the discussion that you're talking about, or what are the options that would be available and what would be the outcomes that would be in the best interest both of the Cherokee Nation, because as I tell people, when tourists...
I can be there, Dr. Gordon.
Come there, okay.
Now, let me before we go any further, council, committee, how many of those would be in favor of this move that we're talking about? All in favor? Good.
Okay. We'll put that as an agenda item. I really appreciate those. Are perfect questions. These are the issues we need to resolve as soon as possible. Yes,
I would like to come to that meeting as well. What time of day is it?
3 o'clock in the afternoon.
All right, we need to wrap this up.
Can I get one?
Yes, go ahead.
On that new building you're talking about, when you build it, is the stuff that's in the basement, will it be on display or is it just gonna be stored again?
It will be stored primarily because the stuff in an archives are usually those things that are there for research purposes. But in our case, and I'll give you an example, the fee simple patent that the Cherokee Nation received, that's signed by President Martin Van Buren, is in that basement. I don't care if it costs $5 million to put up a room this size to preserve that one document because there are no other copies.
Wouldn't that be a great draw if it was in a
And
tempered?
if that
tempered
we
room and you
have,
could see
they've
it?
made copies of it, yes. If we were to display that, we would have to create a special environmentally controlled, like the Declaration of Independence is on display, that sort of stuff. We would need to think properly and a long-term plan and a strategy of how to do that. But those are some of the things that to me are most significant about our history, and that really has to be done. We don't, and we've run out of time, I'm sorry on that.
We're good.
In addition to this meeting.
Thank you.
So-
I look forward to the board meeting,
Thank
and we
you.
will bring more information back to this committee as
Right.
well. Thank you, Dr. Gore.
Good report.
Very good report. We have no old business pending, no new business pending, and our next meeting will be September 26th at 11 a.m. Anyone else have an announcement? Okay, motion to adjourn?
Second.